Ever imagined how European classics stack up when reimagined through the lens of Aussie winemakers? Hi, I'm Sommelier Sophie and we're here for another tasting. Now it's officially winter and officially red wine season. We've pulled together 6 amazing Aussie reds, all using traditional European grape varieties, think Italy and France, traditional winemaking techniques, but with a little bit more of a modern take. We've got wines from all around Australia here. We've got the Aphelion Grenache coming from McLaren Vale, the Mick Sangiovese from the Clare Valley, the Tumblong Hills Nero coming from Gundagai, the Alkimi Wild Dreams Syrah Marsanne coming from Yarra Valley, the Bethany First Village GSM coming from Barossa, and we're going to round it off with the Kangarilla Montepulciano coming out of McLaren Vale as well. So let's dive in. So the first wine we're going to look at today is the Aphelion Welkin Grenache coming out of McLaren Vale, one of my absolute favourite Grenache producers from Australia. I came across Aphelion back at my time as a sommelier on the floor at Key, and what always struck me about these wines was their beautiful finesse and elegance. This is a small winery started by husband and wife team Rob and Louise Mack. They started Aphelion back in 2015 with one purpose only, and that was Grenache. It's a little bit of a love story to Grenache. In fact, Rob is affectionately known as Mr. Grenache. They make their wines out of McLaren Vale, an area extremely famous for Grenache, but I would say more famous for making that richer, bolder style of Grenache. And what I love about Aphelion is that they explore the diversity of the grape and showcase its elegant side. These wines are all about purity of fruit, florals, freshness, and it's a take that's really stuck with me. So let's have a little look. So what we have here is the Welkin Grenache, and the Welkin range is celebrating wines that are meant to be enjoyed young. They're meant to be fruit forward, easy to drink, approachable, and really delicious. And they've also been described as furiously aromatic. So let's see if it lives up to its name. Straight off the bat, you get so much red fruit in here. It's strawberries, raspberries, cherries, a little bit of floral spice in there as well. I know this wine is just going to open up more and more the more air you get inside. Let's have a taste. It tastes exactly like it smells. Strawberries, red cherries, a little hint of spice. These wines are small batch, handcrafted wines, minimal intervention at the heart of what they do, and really all about focusing on that purity of fruit. You can see a bit of that whole bunch coming through. So whole bunch winemaking, they actually use not only the grapes, but a few of the stems as well. And it brings this really interesting, savory, kind of spicy character to the wine. This is definitely the type of wine I would grab on a Monday night for a cheeky wine on the couch. This is kind of Pinot territory, really nice and light, nice and bright, crunchy, and deliciously fresh. Next up, we have the Mick Sangiovese coming from the Clare Valley. This is a small winery started by husband and wife team Tim and Pam Adams. They purchased the historic Stanley Winery down in the Clare Valley back in 2010, and this is a place that has quite a bit of meaning for Tim. So back in 1975, Tim first learnt winemaking from a revered Australian winemaker called Mr. Mick Napstein. And he went on to continue his career winemaking, purchasing the winery in 2010 and starting the project as a bit of a homage to Mr. Mick. The whole idea with the Mr. Mick range is approachable wines that introduce the Aussie palate to varieties that aren't as familiar here. And here we've got Sangiovese. So pretty much synonymous with Tuscany in Italy. If you've tried a Chianti or a Brunello, then you've tried Sangiovese. For me, Sangiovese tends to fit into two sort of camps when it comes to styles. You get that lighter, red-fruited, crunchier sort of style that's a little bit fresher and more approachable, or you can get the more rich and oak-aged expressions as well. I'm expecting that this is going to be the first style, so let's have a little look. Definitely got that lightness in colour, which I'm expecting. Now Sangiovese always has a classic sour cherry acidity. Through the nose on this one you get some dried herbs, lots of red fruit. It's aromatic, but it's not over the top in floral character. Definitely has that signature acidity. Lots of red fruit, but a bit of savory spice. You get dried herbs, kind of bay leaf, almost a little bit of tomato leaf coming through with this one as well. But it's pretty light. It's one of those wines, again, you could just grab on a weeknight. You could have this with charcuterie, pizza, spaghetti bolognese. Delicious, bang for buck, great value. And a great way to try Sangiovese here in Australia. All right, next up, we've got the Tumblong Hills Table of Plenty Nero d'Avola. So this is a wine that comes from Gundagai here in New South Wales, made by Tumbalong Hills. So this is winemaker Simon Robertson, and he is a true sustainable winemaking advocate. He started making wines down at Tumbalong Hills in 2009, and the Table of Plenty range focuses on Italian grape varieties. Here we're using a grape variety, maybe a little bit less known than Sangiovese. This is Nero d'Avola. It's Sicily's most important and most planted red grape. Sicily being the part of Italy right down in the south. Really, really warm. Now Nero d'Avola, thanks to being born in Sicily, loves the warm climate, and it's actually one of the most sustainable grape varieties planted here in Australia. It's very comparable to Shiraz, but in fact it takes about 4 times less water to produce fruit. So more and more winemakers are choosing to plant Nero d'Avola for that sustainable aspect of it. Let's have a little look. Again, the colour of these wines are really, really lovely and light, and it just goes to show that modern winemaking in Australia is leaning towards that kind of lighter, gentler touch and fresher sort of style, which makes these wines really versatile. You don't need to have a big piece of steak to enjoy these ones. You can open them up at the start of the evening or when you just feel like a glass of wine by themselves. Definitely got a bit more of a darkness about it on the palate, a bit more of that kind of dark cherry, blackberry character starting to come through. And I would say it's got that signature Italian acidity to it. It's got that beautiful crunchiness, a little bit of that dusty tannin, definitely a touch more structure compared to the Sangiovese, but still very pretty as well. Lots of strawberries, yum. The perfect wine to have with a tomato-based sauce, pizza, roast chicken. It's nice and light and fresh and doesn't feel heavy or put you to sleep. Now we'll break up the Italian party. We'll move on to the Alkimi Syrah Marsanne blend. This is a wine coming out of the Yarra Valley, made by Alkimi, a winery started by winemaker Stuart Dardine back in 2014. So Stuart got into wine in 2005, learnt about wine all around the world, making wines at some amazing wineries over in Austria, France, Italy, before coming back to Australia and honing his skills at some amazing wineries, Henschke and Yarra. It was actually here that he found his love for Rhone Valley varieties. So the Rhone is an area in France. It's split into the north and the south of Rhone, and they are in the north particularly famous for Shiraz or Syrah. So you might see these names on the labels and feel a little bit confused. Syrah and Shiraz are the exact same grape variety. In Australia we call it Shiraz, and around the rest of the world they call it Syrah. So in Australia, why do some wineries use Syrah on the label? When they use that, it's usually an indication this style of wine is going to be a little bit fresher and made in a bit more of an old world style. So less about that richness, boldness, a little bit more acidity and a little bit more of a lighter touch. Now what Stuart's done with this wine is a famous blend that you find in the Northern Rhone, Syrah and Marsanne. Marsanne is a white French grape variety, and in the Northern Rhone they typically co-ferment these grapes together, which brings out that beautiful bright red colour of the Syrah, the aromatics, and gives it a really lovely plushness as well. Let's have a taste. Now the Wild Dreams range is a minimal intervention range, and this wine is in fact fully preservative free. Looking at the colour of this one, that brightness and lightness, I'm also expecting it to have a little bit more freshness than your classic Aussie Shiraz. This wine's definitely got a savouriness about it. For me, the first notes on the nose aren't necessarily all about the fruit. It's got a kind of earthy, olivey, spicy character going on, which I would say is really classic of the Rhone Valley. So he's done a great job capturing that in a different light. Now, Stuart's belief in winemaking is that wines should really reflect not only the place in which they're made, but also the personality of the winemaker. And I really feel like I get a sense of Stuart and what he wanted to create. These wines are meant to be fun, bright, and easy to enjoy. Lots of wild strawberry on the palate. That savouriness doesn't carry through as much. It's got lots of fruit, it's really crunchy, lots of spice, beautiful and fresh. I just want pizza with this wine. This is the perfect weeknight wine. Delicious. Now next up, we're looking at the Bethany First Village GSM. So another wine inspired by the Rhone Valley in France. While this was the Northern Rhone, we're now looking at the Southern Rhone. So in the Southern Rhone, blends are king. There's an area that made the blends very famous around the world, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, an area you might have heard of before. They're famous for making wines dominant in Grenache, but blending in up to 13 different grape varieties. Now here in Australia, we've kind of taken that and put our own spin on it. It's particularly famous down in McLaren Vale and Barossa, a style of wine that you've definitely heard of before, GSM. So it's a blend of 3 grape varieties, Grenache, Shiraz, and Mourvedre, or Mataro, blended together to bring out the perfect balance in a wine. This one's made by Bethany Wines, made by one of the oldest winemaking families here in Australia, the Shrapple family. They first planted vines down in Barossa back in 1852, and the family went on to grow grapes for the next 4 generations. It wasn't until 1981 that 5th generation brothers started Bethany Wines, named affectionately after the village where some of the first settlers landed down in Barossa, and today it's carried on by 6th generation Tanya. Let's open it up and take a look. So winemaker Alex McLaren, he spent a lot of time making wines in the Northern Rhone and getting really familiar with that sort of style. So I'm excited to see what sort of traditions he brings to this wine. Now it's definitely got that signature rich fruit that you expect from a wine from Barossa. Barossa is typically known for having those really juicy, really plush and really fruit-forward styles, often dominated by oak, but these days winemakers are leaning away from that newer oak style and leaning into that fresher, more purity of fruit expression. And that's evident in the wine that they make here. They're using gentler methods, old oak only, and stainless steel to provide a little bit more of that kind of freshness that we all reach for these days. That's delicious. There's no way I would believe this is a 14.5% wine. Grenache has a tendency to go into that higher alcohol area, but this has so much lightness about it. You can really feel the dominance of the Grenache. It's got red fruit, it's really beautiful and ripe. It's got a hint of spice, and then that fruit palate weight that you get in the mid palate is what you get from the Shiraz. The Mataro at the end adds a touch of that kind of rustic quality, but it's fruit forward, delicious, and a wine that I would reach for more so with chicken than steak. Yum. Now, our final wine of the day, this is the Kangarilla Montepulciano. So a wine coming from McLaren Vale, made by Kangarilla Road. This is another husband and wife team, Kevin and Helen O'Brien. They started Kangarilla Road back in 1997, and today Kevin brings with him more than 3 decades of winemaking experience. We're finishing off the tasting with another Italian variety, this time Montepulciano. It's from a part of central Italy called Abruzzo, and it's known for making some of the boldest, richest, and typically kind of rustic styles of red. So I'm expecting this one to be the biggest one of the lineup today. Let's see. Now, Kangarilla Road is affectionately known as the winery with the leaf on the label. Now, I love this theme that they've gone with. Across 9 different wines that they make, they include the unique leaf from the vine of that grape. And it's a reflection of the distinct characters that they capture from each grape variety. So let's dive in and have a look at the Montepulciano. It's got a little bit more richness in colour, but it still looks like it has a nice lightness about it. Definitely the darkest smell. of anything on the table today. It's kind of blackberries, a little bit of charcuterie. I feel like this would pair really, really well with a steak. A little bit of chocolate, a little bit of kind of coffee, cassis. Yum. Dark fruit profile, really rich. Again, this one has so much fruit. None of these wines today have been showcasing the oak, and I love that. It's a real, true expression of modern winemaking here in Australia. Yum. That coffee, that blackberry, it almost reminds me of a warm-baked blackberry pie. It's delicious, and I would reach for this with any kind of meat stew, lamb, steak, chicken, but equally you could have this with a little plate of charcuterie as well. Delicious. Well, there we have it. That's the end of the tasting of our Winter Red series. Some incredible wines from around the country. What I love about these wines is that they all showcase that direction that Australian winemaking is moving towards. They still take inspiration from the old world. They still use some old world blends that have worked over the years, and that's why they're famous. But they put their own spin on them, which make them really enjoyable and a really interesting story as well. I would say my pick of the day would be, I love the Aphelion. I knew from before the tasting I would love this wine. It's just fresh, it's crunchy, it's almost Pinot Noir territory. It's the sort of wine that you could reach for any day of the week. It's sure to impress anyone that you have this with. But surprisingly, I think the Bethany wine was the one that really shocked me today. This one is really juicy. It's got Barossa Valley, but freshness and energy. And it's a wine that I would absolutely drink on the weekend at a dinner party, showing that fresher, more modern take on Aussie GSM. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tasting today. You can continue the journey online at More Than Wine. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.